Focus on yourself and stay silent. That sounds simple, doesn't it? But let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly gave yourself the gift of silence? Silence from opinions, silence from noise, silence from the constant pull of others' demands. Most people never do. They spend their entire lives turning outward, trying to impress, trying to be noticed, trying to gain approval, while neglecting the most important person they'll ever meet, themselves. The greatest mistake you can make is to spend your years pouring all of your energy into being seen rather than into becoming. What if instead of announcing your dreams to the world, you quietly built them? What if, instead of explaining your plans to people who will never understand, you silently carried them in your heart until they became reality? Imagine how much stronger you would be if you learned to plant your seeds in silence, water them in discipline, and let the results be your voice. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, there was a man in a small village. He wasn't the most talented, he wasn't the richest, and he wasn't the loudest. While others gathered in the marketplace, boasting about what they would one day achieve, this man stayed quiet. He worked in the fields, day after day, season after season. People laughed at him, saying he had no ambition, no dreams. But years passed, and one by one, those who bragged disappeared from the marketplace. Their words had vanished into the wind. But the quiet man, he now owned the largest field in the village. His silence had grown crops. His silence had turned into results. And suddenly, those who once mocked him were now coming to him for food. You see, silence is not weakness. Silence is not retreat. Silence is strategy. When you focus on yourself, when you turn inward and direct your energy toward your own growth, your silence becomes power. People may not hear your words, but they cannot ignore your results. Every time you speak too soon, you give away your energy. You waste your fire convincing others instead of fueling yourself. The man who announces his plans loudly rarely finishes them, but the one who keeps them guarded, who waters them in private, always sees them through. Why? Because silence protects you. It shields your dreams from doubt, from jealousy, from interference. Think about the strongest trees in the forest. They don't make noise while growing. They don't scream for attention as they reach upward. They just rise, quietly, steadily, until their presence is undeniable. One day, you walk through the forest, and you cannot help but notice them towering above everything else. That is the kind of power you gain when you focus on yourself and stay silent. Most people cannot stand silence. They fear it. They feel small without the noise, without the applause, without the attention. And so they talk, they reveal, they explain. And in doing so, they weaken the very foundation of their growth. So, my question to you is this. Are you willing to take the harder path? Are you willing to build without announcing, to work without recognition, to keep your head down while others are busy chasing approval? Because if you can focus on yourself and stay silent, then one day you won't have to prove anything. Your results will speak louder than every voice in the room. Remember, a river doesn't announce when it begins as a drop of water on the mountain. It simply flows. It carves stone, nourishes fields, and moves forward with unshakable strength. Only later do people look at it in awe and call it mighty. And so it is with you. Stay silent. Focus on your flow. In time, the world will have no choice but to recognize your power. The danger of noise. Most people lose themselves in noise. They believe the louder they speak, the more they are heard. But let me ask you something. When did noise ever build anything? Think of the rooster. Every morning, before the sun even rises, it crows at the top of its lungs. Its sound echoes across the village, demanding attention. But after the noise fades, what is left? Has the rooster fed a family? Has it built a barn? Has it tilled the soil? No, it has produced nothing but sound. Now look at the ox. Quiet, strong, steady. It doesn't need to cry out to prove its worth. Day after day, it pulls the plow, breaks the earth, prepares the ground for seed. The ox may never be heard, but it will always be remembered. Families are fed because of it. Harvests exist because of it. Nations have been built upon its labor. Which one would you rather be? The rooster that demanded attention, or the ox that built something that lasted? Noise burns energy. It drains you. Have you noticed how exhausting it is to constantly explain yourself, to prove yourself, to convince others? That energy could have been invested into your growth, your craft, your mission. Instead, it is wasted in the air, never to return. Silence, however, preserves energy. It allows you to take every drop of strength you have and pour it into your work, into the foundation you are building. A man who spends his life trying to be seen becomes exhausted, but a man who spends his life working becomes fulfilled. One day, the rooster's crow will be forgotten, but the ox's field will still feed generations. That is the danger of noise. It makes you feel important, while robbing you of the progress that actually makes you important. The shield of silence. There is power in keeping your plans private, not because the world doesn't deserve to know, but because the world doesn't understand. People cannot see beyond their own eyes, and most eyes are clouded by limitation. They will not see your vision as you see it. They will shrink it, doubt it, or worse, steal it. That is why silence becomes your shield. I once knew a young craftsman, a man with rough hands and a brilliant mind. He had an idea for a new tool that could change the way farmers worked, something that could save hours of labor each day. Now he could have run to the marketplace and announced it. He could have told his neighbors, "One day I will build a tool that makes me famous, that brings me riches." But he didn't. He stayed quiet. He sketched in private, carved in solitude, worked late into the night in the glow of his lamp. The neighbors grew curious. "What are you building in there?" they would ask with a laugh. "Why do you hide away so often?" He gave them no answer. To them, his silence looked like weakness, perhaps even foolishness. They mocked him for wasting time. But what they didn't know was that behind that closed door, his silence was protecting his dream. Months later, the day came when he emerged with his invention. A simple tool, quiet, small, but it transformed the work of the farmers. What once took hours now took minutes. Fields that had worn men down for generations were suddenly easier to manage. His invention spread from one farmer to another, and soon the very same neighbors who mocked him were lining up to buy from him. His silence had protected him. His results had spoken for him. Had he revealed his vision too early, it would have been crushed under doubt. Someone might have stolen the idea. Someone might have laughed him out of his workshop. But because he kept silent, he gave his dream room to breathe, to grow, to mature until it was strong enough to stand on its own. That is the shield of silence. When you guard your plans, you protect your energy from being drained by critics. You protect your ideas from being stolen by opportunists. You protect yourself from the weight of other people's doubts. And most importantly, you protect your focus. The seed that is buried deep in the soil grows strong because it is hidden. Your dreams must be the same. Let them grow underground, away from eyes and voices, until the day comes when they are ready to break through the surface. Then, only then, will the world see, and it will be undeniable. Energy saved is energy invested. Every word you speak about your dreams takes energy, and every ounce of energy you waste convincing others is energy stolen from building yourself. That's the truth most people never understand. They spend their days explaining, defending, persuading, trying to convince others to believe in something that doesn't even exist yet. And while they're busy talking, the dream itself is starving. Think of a lamp. If it has only a little oil, the flame grows dim. The more you waste that oil, the faster the light disappears. But if you preserve it, if you save it for the right moment, that flame can burn through the darkest night. Your silence preserves your oil. Your silence gives you the strength to burn when others have gone dark. I once watched two men begin a project at the same time. The first spoke loudly of all he would do. He traveled from house to house, telling the villagers, "One day, I'll be the richest man here. You just wait and see." His words were exciting, his promises grand, but every time he told his story, he gave away a piece of his fire. He spent his nights repeating his dreams instead of building them. The second man spoke to no one. He woke before dawn, worked in the fields, saved his earnings, and disappeared quietly each evening. He did not waste time convincing others. He convinced himself through action. He poured his oil into labor, not into noise. Years passed. The first man was still talking, still promising, still dreaming out loud, but his words had grown hollow. The villagers no longer listened. Meanwhile, the second man, he owned the very land the first man stood on. He had built what the other only spoke of. The difference was not in talent, it was not in opportunity, it was in energy. One wasted his oil on words, the other invested his oil in work, and the return on that investment was undeniable. The power of being over seeming. In life, there is a difference between seeming and being. To seem is to wear a mask, to act a part, to perform for applause. To be is to stand quietly, deeply rooted, needing no approval. And here's the truth. Seeming may gain attention for a moment, but only being will endure. Consider a sapling. It rises from the soil with pride. Its small leaves spread wide as if to declare, "Look at me!" But it can be pulled from the ground with 2 fingers. Its roots are shallow. Its strength is a performance. Now consider the oak, silent, firm, 100 years in the making. No applause, no announcement, no pretense. Yet its presence commands respect. Storms cannot uproot it. Droughts cannot weaken it. Time cannot erase it. That is the power of being over seeming. I have studied the lives of great leaders, and I noticed something. The greatest among them rarely spoke of their greatness. They did not boast of their wisdom. They did not shout of their strength. They lived it. Their decisions, their endurance, their patience spoke louder than any proclamation. And when they finally opened their mouths, their words carried weight, because their lives had already given them authority. To seem is easy. It requires nothing but words, gestures, appearances. To be is hard. It requires years of discipline, sacrifice, and growth, but only being lasts. Masks fall, costumes wear thin, pretenses crumble under pressure. But character, true character, stands like the oak, silent, immovable, undeniable. Do not waste your life trying to seem important. Be important. Do not chase applause. Chase mastery. Do not wear a mask. Grow roots. Because when the storms of life come, and they always come, seeming will be blown away, but being will remain. And when you remain, when you stand, you will not need to say a word. Your life will speak for you. The discipline of building in the dark. There's something sacred about working when nobody is watching. It is in those lonely hours, when you labor without applause, that true character is forged. The world only sees the result, the finished work, the shining achievement, but what gives it power are the countless invisible hours that came before. Think of the blacksmith. He does not strike iron in the marketplace. He does not announce every swing of his hammer. He works in the heat of his forge, unseen, until the blade is sharp enough to be revealed. That is the discipline of building in the dark. I knew a man once who longed to be a teacher. He wasn't wealthy, he wasn't well connected, but he had a hunger to shape minds. At night, while others slept, he studied by candlelight. He read, he wrote, he prepared lessons no one asked him to prepare. He gave up leisure, gave up comfort, gave up sleep, yet no one applauded him. No one even knew. Years passed like this. Then the day came when he stood in a classroom for the first time. The students watched him, and when he spoke, it was as though the words carried an invisible weight. His lessons were not dry theory. They were alive, burning with the strength of 100 nights of silent preparation. His students leaned forward. They listened, not because of his title, not because of his position, but because of his preparation. That's what silence gives you. The discipline to build in the dark until your light is undeniable. Anyone can talk about what they will do. Few can labor in silence long enough to see it done. The more invisible your labor is today, the more undeniable your success will be tomorrow. Because work done in silence grows roots. It becomes deep, steady, unshakable. And when the moment of unveiling arrives, no one can deny it. So embrace the dark, embrace the silence. Build where no one is watching. Because when you finally step into the light, you will not need to ask for recognition. It will follow you. Let your success speak for you. At the end of the day, silence is not about hiding forever. It is about holding your voice until your results can speak louder than your words ever could. Success has a language of its own. When you walk into a room with evidence, real evidence, of your discipline, your growth, your accomplishments, you don't need to say much. People see it, they feel it, they respect it. Think about it. When a river is small, it makes a lot of noise as it flows over the rocks. But when it becomes wide and deep, it flows silently with power. Your silence while building is what gives you depth. It is what makes you undeniable. When you finally reveal what you've been working on, the same people who doubted you, who underestimated you, who ignored you, they will sit in awe. Because now they cannot argue with your results. They cannot deny what you have built. And the best part? You will not need to explain yourself. You will not need to convince them. Your work will do the talking. So build quietly, grow in silence, protect your oil, invest your energy, and let your success roar louder than your words ever could. Because at the end of the road, the world doesn't remember who talked the most. It remembers who built, who achieved, who rose and stood unshakable. So remember this, silence is not weakness, it is strength. Every moment you stay quiet and focused, you're storing energy, building power, and sharpening your edge. You don't need to announce your journey. You don't need to prove yourself with words. Let your results speak for you. Build in the dark, and one day, when the time is right, your light will be so bright that no one will be able to ignore it.